Welcome to the T-Squared Dad's Brown Bag Podcast. Here's your hosts, Kyle Baker and Dieter Burrell. Welcome back, everybody. We are going to be discussing a interesting topic that Dieter and I talk about a lot, which is emotional intelligence and having high emotional intelligence. We've read a lot of stuff on this, and right now, Dieter and I are kind of looking over a couple of just different articles that we've kind of compiled to talk to you guys about today.
Yeah, guys. Thank you again. Just wanted to give a quick shout out before we start into the discussion. We've hit a milestone, and I think we're pretty excited. We are at 2,500 downloads. I hope that everybody has been enjoying our podcast. So keep it up. Your support is always welcome. Emotional intelligence. What does that mean? Well, to some folks, the definition of emotional intelligence is being self-aware.
Yeah.
And there are different traits that brings to the table, especially in the workforce. Being able to deal with people. There are various traits that I've encountered that when you have bosses or managers, they're not close or not open, would be the correct word, to being emotionally intelligent. Is being able to communicate their ideas or their feelings with other people. Empathy is something that's very important in any work environment.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to kind of think about that in the business world, because you're always kind of thought of as being this like macho person. I run the world, and I'm in charge, and you guys need to follow, and this is work. Leave your emotions at the door. But in today's world, that's really not the way things should be. And I think that's one of the things that emotional intelligence really helps with, is if you can kind of find what you believe and what you feel, and then be able to put yourself in the seat of the other person and what they're feeling at that moment. So one of these articles that we were looking at was 13 signs of high emotional intelligence. One of them that I really liked was that you have to show authenticity. And what it's saying here is authenticity doesn't mean sharing everything about yourself to everyone all the time. It does mean, though, that it means saying what you mean, meaning what you say, and then sticking to your values and principles in every decision that you make. And I think that that's hard for a lot of people to do. Sometimes, your principles and your values get in the way of maybe the best financial decision. But at the end of the day, you have to live with that decision. And if it goes against your values and your principles, are you really being true to yourself? And I think that that's one of the things that people struggle with in the business world a lot.
I think there's something that I had learned, and I think I may have mentioned it in one of our previous podcasts. I'm involved with this Jacob Leadership Program, and there was a statement that was made: when we are in a position of stress, we tend to get emotionally hijacked. And having that self-awareness and seeing it coming, seeing it that you are about to be put in a stressful situation, that right there is emotional intelligence. Being self-aware, where you're at, how are you going to react to the situation, how are you going to engage people, co-workers, people that are underneath you, your people that are above you, your client. It's important because when there's a stressful situation, you don't want to give the impression that you have lost control.
This just got the email. We just hit 3,000 downloads.
Whoa.
Sorry to interrupt, Dieter.
Whoa, guys. Super excited. Keep it up. We are stoked over here. For some of you older guys, know the word stoked. Hope you got a kick out of that. There was something that me and Kyle kind of spread some of the articles that we were reading, and there was one interesting little part where people that are emotionally intelligent have better relationship or have better methods of engaging groups of people. They're better at teamwork, and they're more inspirational type leaders than the non-emotionally intelligent folks. And for some of you guys out there, there is intelligence. Yes, I get it. You're intelligent, you're sharp, but if intelligence can't take you from point A to point B as a team, it's a solo ride, and that ride on top is very lonely. In the business world, you have to be able to engage people, groups of people.
Yeah, I think something about being of high emotional intelligence, like your ability to influence people in a positive way, and just really your ability to influence people, becomes extremely heightened. I think that was something that they talked about in that article, which both of these articles we'll try to post on our Facebook page, so if anybody wants to go read them. But I think that was one of the things they talked in there, is about being able to positively influence people that you're working with, people that you're around, to try to drive them to do better for themselves and for the company that you're working with. You know, trying to be authentic, trying to, benefit from criticism. And, one of the hardest things that people struggle with, and, I think you and I also, one of the things that I'm working on is being able to more control my thoughts, right? Not everything that I think needs to be said, and being able to take a moment to pause, decide if this is something that I want to deal with right now, or if this is something that's outside the situation that I can control. So I think that it gives you the ability to refrain from making a permanent decision based on that temporary emotion. Like you're going to make this big decision based on the way that you feel right there in that second, and that's not necessarily the best thing to do. Sometimes you need to take a minute, step back, look at the situation from your perspective, look at the situation from their perspective, and then make your decision.
Yeah. Having worked in multiple offices, having lived in South Florida, in the East Coast and the West Coast, has given me an insight of how good managers deal with stressful situations, how good managers deal with difficult employees, how a difficult employee can be turned into a positive employee.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost we've had situations at an office that I used to work at out in Arizona, where we had an employee that was brought in not knowing their history, and we were put in a stressful situation where he had consumed some sort of narcotic, and the leaders or the leadership style of some of our folks, because they had that sense of care, that sense of empathy, that sense of, we take responsibility for others in our team, they went to his rescue. They went to help the families. Right. They went to, so there's this other level that's beyond just coming to work, talking to people, telling them that you're there for them, and then the moment they leave the doors, they're on their own.
Yeah.
It's an environment where we're all interacting with each other, and you are dealing with people. People are people. And
a person isn't and should not be divided from in the office and outside of the office. Like, you should care about that person in the office the same way that you would care about them outside of the office. And the value of what they're doing outside of the office is really just as important to you, or should be, as what's going on inside the office. Them making sure that they're taking care of their families and taking care of themselves and doing all these things to better, justify and take care of themselves outside of the office should be as high a priority as them providing the work that's being done inside the office as well. But a lot of times that gets kind of pushed to the wayside. Them at home aren't making me money, but in the office they are. That's what I care about.
I think what sometimes happens, and I think we may have mentioned this before in some of our other podcasts, is your mentor or your leader, before you became a leader, you sort of sometimes copy that style.
Right.
And that perpetuates the poor behavior.
Yeah.
It isn't until you educate yourself and you begin to understand your own feelings and your own way of managing your own stress. Again, it goes back to I remember the first time I ever heard what emotional intelligence was. I didn't know what they meant. I thought, people are intelligent, so they should be able to manage situations. No, not exactly. It goes back to being self-aware of where you stand when you're in that particular stressful moment. Did you guys know that leaders that are more self-aware tend to keep employees' retention longer? So that's something that everybody should think. It makes sense to have the training.
Yeah, and trying to get training on this is always kind of a difficult thing, because in order to kind of build up your emotional intelligence, you kind of have to break down all of the things that you're doing wrong. And that's one of the things that, as an emotionally intelligent person, you have to be able to adapt with, and being able to take that criticism and benefit from it. In this article I was reading, it says nobody enjoys negative feedback, but that the criticism is a chance to learn, even if it's not delivered in the best way. And even when it's unfounded, it gives you a window into how others are thinking about you and your situation. When you receive negative feedback, if you're an emotionally intelligent person, you keep your emotions in check and ask yourself, how can this make me better? Right? So taking this negative feedback and turning it into a positive is a big part of being emotionally intelligent, and not getting, broken down so far and letting it affect you in a way that is so negative that you can't overcome it, but being able to take some of those negative criticisms and build on them. And I think that that's one of the big parts of the emotionally intelligent person. One of the other things that I don't think happens enough in the office is, celebrating small wins and giving praise to people. A lot of times now it's, I shouldn't have to tell you that you're doing a good job when you're just doing your job, right? Like, you're not doing anything outside of the ordinary. You're just doing what you're getting paid to do. And that's fine, but every human craves acknowledgement, no matter how small it is, and appreciation. And whenever you're not getting that, even if you are doing your job, you feel like you're not, because no one's acknowledging, hey, you did your job today. Good job. Way to get done what you need to get done. Continue, doing the good work. But a lot of people think that, if you're just doing what you're supposed to be, then there's no need to kind of give praise to that, because it's expected. But, I'm taking time away from my family to come into the office and do all of these things. And yeah, it would just be nice to, hear, hey, really appreciate you. Really appreciate the job you're doing. You're doing a great job. The littlest things, it takes no time, but it means the world to that person.
It reminds me, just taking the moment to get to know the people you work with. I'm not going to say that I'm the perfect example of it, because I don't think there is such a thing. But it's being aware that it does take some work and effort, just like anything else. If you're trying to get good at something, I think I heard a podcaster one time, or either that or a YouTuber, and he said, this is a perfect example. He says, if you want to get good at something, do you want to go, an example was when you go to the gym, and you want to see the results. It says, do you go to the gym once a month, or do you go to the gym 2-3 times a week? The more you do it, the better you get at it.
Right.
So I think it's, you have to think of improving on yourself through, I call it rituals. Mm-hmm. Waking up every morning is sort of like what you do every morning. You wake up, you brush your teeth, take a shower, you do X number of steps, you go exercise, you go run, you go read a newspaper, whatever it is that you go with that. There are other things that I've seen where people actually, successful people, what do? They have a routine. They're almost predictable, but there's a reason why they're successful, because they do these activities that are almost meditating. They meditate.
Yeah.
So think through what you're going to do for the day. Think how you're going to engage people. Think how you're going to praise them. Think how you're going to help them. Because as a leader, you got to put yourself in that position where people are wanting your interaction, whether you think that you don't, they do.
Yeah.
Because the bottom line is, you're there, they follow, And if they have nothing to believe in who they follow, then it fails.
Absolutely. And one of those things is if you're as the boss not being the leader, just know that someone there is, and they might not be leading your company the way that you want it to be led. They might be steering your company down the wrong path because there is no direction. Humans innately are going to follow in some direction. There's going to be somebody that stands out and starts giving either intentionally or unintentionally a direction for how things are going to go. And if you're not there as the owner or the boss or the manager to make sure that your team is staying on track, then you don't know what way they're going to go. And they could go in a completely different direction from where you want them to be and drive your company into a whole new world of problems.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest failures, I noticed this having lived down in South Florida and in a big firm, is trust.
Yeah.
If you don't trust your staff, then I think you failed as a leader.
Yeah, I don't think that was in any of these articles that we read, but I think that's a big part of being emotionally intelligent and being a good leader is trusting the people that you've surrounded yourself with to make decisions and, help guide those things. But you have to make sure that everybody's thinking the same, and the way that you do that is by checking in and giving criticism and giving feedback. Without feedback, it's nearly impossible to keep everyone on track.
That's right.
So,
that's absolutely right.
Having reviews and, giving that criticism that people need. As much as we need positive feedback, we need negative feedback too, as long as it's in a good criticism type way. You don't want to be just beating down anybody.
Right.
But people need to know where they need to work on themselves or work on themselves towards their business.
That's correct.
If I don't know that I'm doing something wrong, then how am I supposed to fix it? Right? And that, as a leader, you need to also get input from your employees and figure out where you're doing things wrong. You're not above the law. You need to figure out what you're doing wrong. How can you fix it? Have that feedback. As an employee, you need the same thing, and you need that from the people that are mentoring you, the people that are, managing you. So, and I think that that's part of an ego issue.
Yeah, I mean, think about this, and I think we even have had conversations in other podcasts. And I'm always going to be tying multiple different podcasts because our discussions kind of weave between different podcasts. We were talking about in one of the podcasts that we did was Kyle's sale of his house, and how you had the roof inspectors come to the house, and then the insurance inspectors come to the house, and how we said that you need to get an adjuster, a third opinion.
Right.
Because just like a leader sometimes gets lost in his own thoughts as to he thinks he's doing something right for the group, he needs another person to bounce those ideas off.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Kind of like a moderator type deal.
Sort of like a freelance adjuster. An adjuster would come in. He won't be biased to you. He won't be biased to the insurance company. The insurance company in that episode or that podcast, the insurance adjuster works for the insurance. Why would he say otherwise that you need your roof replaced?
Right.
Versus the roofer is like, hey, I'm gambling. I need to do what I need to do because the law tells me I need to do it. So he's going to look at your roof. He's going to assess it. He's going to tell you, hey, I think you need a new roof. Same thing with the boss. Hey, I think you need to do this to improve. And you're like, well, I don't really think I need to do that. But you question it because you had that, again, it goes back to that leadership role where it's like, do you trust your leader enough that you can say, yeah, you know what, I do agree with you, right? Are you so self-aware that you know where you are weak and where you are strong? And I think that's the same thing that happens to a leader. He needs to know where he's weak and where he's strong. Yeah,
and you can't know that by yourself. You have to have someone that's going to be helping you and mentoring you, even as a leader, to find those issues. And being able to kind of turn that mirror on you and be able to let you see yourself in that light. But that, like I said, it was kind of coming back to that like ego thing of, I'm the best, there's no one that can do this better than me. I'm doing everything right. So you have to find someone that you trust and that you've got a relationship with that can handle those types of big encounters and isn't going to crumble underneath the weight of being told, hey man, you really need to step up your game. You're not providing for your employees the way that you think you are, or hey, you're not, doing what you need to at the office for your boss to be happy with what you're doing. And you got to kind of flip and turn that mirror to where you can really self-reflect, but with the help of someone else. You can't just do that by yourself. And to me, that's impossible. You got to have somebody that's helping and encouraging in the right way, but also helping to kind of break you down and bring you back to reality whenever you start kind of getting above that ability to see yourself in that negative way as well, and in those areas that you need to work. As a person that only is self-reflecting and never getting outside of opinions, you're never going to want to self-reflect on the negative things that you're doing. You're always going to focus on the positive.
Right.
But on the flip side of that coin is you have to make sure that the person that you're getting feedback from isn't only focusing on the negative. As an employee, a lot of times you can only want to focus on the negative things that are happening at the office and not focusing on the positive things that are happening. So you have to be able to balance that. And I think that's where that emotional intelligence comes into play, of being able to balance those things and be able to really understand the full picture and being able to look at a situation from the opposing side and being able to understand what they're thinking and feeling emotionally as well as what you are. And then meeting in that middle ground and understanding what you're both bringing to the table and how you can help one another to become better.
Yeah. I think for all you listeners out there, I'm going to put a challenge out there for you guys, is to sit down with your team, sit down with your, I'm going to call it your family away from your family, the people that you work with, have them give you their 2 cents about you. Do a self-check, get some feedback. You guys can reach out to us on our Facebook post, give us your thoughts. I challenge you to give us your ideas. Hey, what do you guys would you like to hear us talk about in our podcast? How can we improve in our podcast?
Yeah, I mean that's something that we really need, isn't it? We need somebody to give us some feedback.
Yeah.
How are we doing? How's our job for this podcast going? What could we be doing better? What are we doing good now? We do get some feedback based on downloads and things like that, but that's never a negative thing. So I would also challenge anybody out there listening to kind of go to our Facebook page, go to our YouTube page, give us some comments, positive, negative criticisms, and because we're always striving to do better.
Yeah, reach out to us on Instagram, #T2Dads. We're out there. You guys can go Google us, #T2Dads, and we have a YouTube channel that we've created for you guys to listen to. Some of you guys that aren't listening or don't have quick access to some of these podcasts, you guys can go there and listen to us. Put your comments. Don't share with us. Share with us some of your experiences. We'd love to hear back from you guys. Anybody that's out there that wants to share an experience that they had with a boss that was a nightmare boss, that they should have been more aware of how they treated other people. Sometimes we get lost ourselves. Again, we're not perfect. No one in this podcast would ever say that they're perfect, but we are trying to bring trying to bring light to topics that do create chaos and issues in the business world, and hopefully we can kind of bring you guys a little more education. By the way, just wanted to kind of bring it back. One podcast earlier, we had done a talk about getting licensure other than going through architecture schools. I sat down with Michael from our previous podcast, and I shared with him. We went back to the Arizona Board of Technical Registration for licensing in Arizona, and we found out that Arizona has changed their rules. They no longer have a 10-year minimum requirement. What they've done, they've actually have a 5-year, or I think they call it a 60-month requirement that they have, and they'll give you credit for having received a degree from a non-accredited program versus an accredited program. And I think they give you 3 years towards your education, and then an additional 2 years for having received an accredited degree from NAAB accredited program. The state of Arizona will give you a total of 5 years, which qualifies you to take the exam. And I think all you got to do is gather some information, some experience, something or other, and then send it to them. Check with your board. And these rules are always changing, but I figure I share with you guys, since you guys are kind of keeping track of our podcast, something that you guys would enjoy, and hopefully Michael's listening out there. If you're listening, Michael, just let us know.
All right, Dieter. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up for the day, and I think that was a really good talk about emotional intelligence. Like I said, we look forward to hearing from anybody that wants to kind of give us some feedback and give us some commentary on how you guys take this, and we'd love for you to guys go and challenge you and your team to kind of have that self-reflection and also peer review between everybody to kind of get some of that criticism out there to try to make everyone a little bit better. So with that, we're going to go into the joke of the day. Okay, what kind of egg did the evil chicken lay?
What kind?
A deviled egg. Thanks for listening to the T-Squared Dad's Brown Bag Podcast. Please subscribe on your favorite platform, and we will talk to you next time.